So pleased to be here. And I do want to just say one quick word about my class that Natalie just put in the chat. It is a 5-week course that meets live every week, and the recordings are sent out afterwards. And there's also a portal of guided meditation and journaling prompts and poems. And it's the opportunity to look at longing and desire as a source of wisdom, as a way to ease your anxiety if you find yourself struggling with a lot of anxiety, and as a way to kind of light your life up and feel more alive. And it's done in a small community, so it's the opportunity to really be in community with others if you feel like you want to solidify or deepen your meditation practice. The deadline is pretty much the end of this weekend because it starts on Tuesday. So if you're at all interested, please make sure to click on that link and sign up after the meditation. So now I'll dive into this week's Torah portion, which, if you've been following along, is the old wonderful story of Noah and the ark. And it's a profound story. It's one that, like, the more that you look it over and the more that you sit with it and practice with it, the more it opens and deepens, like so much of Torah. And as I was kind of doing a little bit of study and review on it, I came across something that was so bananas. And I want to share that with you. And I want to offer it with you because maybe you've come across this, but I have not. I had not before. So we know that in the ark, the Torah says that the people that were saved, the last people on the earth, or the ones to go into the ark, were Noah and his family, and then 2 of every animal, right? This is all kind of the common knowledge. And so that's where we begin. And I want to ask Natalie if you can share your screen. Yeah, there's a source sheet, and I'll share the screen. And so this is the recap of what's happening in the Torah portion from Rabbi Eliezer, from Pirkei de Rabbi Eliezer. So this is a midrash where he's talking about the ark. And he says, and all living things which were upon the face of the earth became, as it is said, and every living thing, so this is the line from the Torah, and every living thing was destroyed, which was upon the face of the ground, except Noah and those who were with him in the ark, as it is said. And here we're back to the direct quote, and Noah only was left, and they that were with him in the ark. Except, and this is Rabbi Eliezer talking, except Og, king of Bashan, who sat down on a piece of wood under the gutter of the ark. He swore to Noah and to his sons that he would be their servant forever. What did Noah do? He bored an aperture, an opening. He created an opening in the ark, and he put through it his food daily for him. So he was feeding Og, king of Bashan. We'll get to who he is in a minute. And he also was left. So Og is also part of this journey of the ark, according to Rabbi Eliezer. As it is said, for only Og, king of Bashan, remained of the remnant of the giants. So Rabbi Eliezer is hanging this entire new story that's not in the text about this giant Og, king of Bashan, that's coming along in the ark on this one line of Torah. For only Og, king of Bashan, remained of the remnant of the giants. All right. What? It's kind of wild, right? A giant is also coming along in the ark. And this prompted me. I don't know how much you know about Og. First of all, what a name. So perfectly names this giant. And who is he? So if we go read ahead through the Torah all the way up to Deuteronomy, we find that Og, king of Bashan, was an enemy of the Israelites, and we fought against him and his army in the desert centuries later. So this midrash by Rabbi Eliezer prompted many, many confused people, commentators, more midrashim, asking the question, like, what? How did this? Was he like a person? Was he some kind of angelic being? How did he survive all these centuries later? What was he doing there? What? First of all, like, how did he survive on this outgrowth of the ark? So I found this image, I'm guessing is AI, that I want to share with you, and I'll describe it if you're not looking at your screen. It's this kind of wild image of the ark and this like little wooden parapet kind of underneath, as it's described in Rabbi Eliezer's commentary. And then this massive giant with like a big beard sitting, and Noah in the window, in the aperture, feeding the giant throughout the storm. And this is kind of how we're supposed to believe he survived. And there's all these other midrashes about, like, okay, the rain, when the rain was falling, it was falling actually more like lava. It was burning, but around Og, it fell like cold water. And, you know, God, the only way that it worked physics wise was because God did a miracle. So somehow God okayed this idea of Noah bringing Og along for the ride. And it's wild. And I think from a kind of contemplative standpoint, the whole story of Noah and the ark begs a meditative, a contemplative understanding of what is happening. Because we know what it feels like to be tossed here and there by a powerful storm, by a powerful deluge, by a mabul, a flood. When we know in our lives, some of us more than others, what it means to be flooded. And hopefully we also know what it feels like and what it can be to have a refuge in the storm. That's why we come to these meditations week after week. That's why we're trying to find the practice, the place where we can find some stability, our own arcs in the middle of the storms. So if we're staying with this metaphor, what in the world does it mean to invite along this giant enemy of Israel? This giant, scary, horrible thing, part that we're not just, unconsciously bringing along in our refuge, inviting into our refuge, but every single day feeding it, offering it food. What do you think that means? What could that mean on a metaphoric level? What could maybe Rabbi Eliezer be trying to do here by introducing this idea of Og? And I want to remind you that what he says is Og promises to be a servant of Noah and his children and the next generations for the rest of time. And so there's all kinds of, again, other stories that say, well, Og was really Abraham's servant Eliezer, like they were the same guy. And so there is he somehow, according to this imagination, there is some truth that this big, gigantic, scary being is actually trying to help us, or he's on our side somehow, even though it sure seems later on that he's not on our side. So, again, I want to just kind of like pose the question to you. And um, we'll close the chat for now, but I keep in mind for yourself what you think this might mean personally. And hopefully, after the meditation, you can share what do you think Og represents and what could it mean? And I want to offer, if it's helpful to you, that for me, thinking about this giant is kind of like in the Buddhist world, there's a line that says you should invite in your demons with and give them tea. Like you should invite your demons to tea and give them cakes. And I think there's some echo of that here. I'm going to propose that there's some echo of that here, of that idea that what if we really, with most curiosity and openness that we can, really invited in these scary parts of ourselves, these giant, frightening parts that maybe we would be happy to do without, and we would like to push off into the water rather than feed and welcome as an important part of ourselves. What if we could really be welcoming to those parts? And whatever that is for you, maybe it's your anger, your inability to control your temper, or maybe it's your anxiety and just this like unrelenting worry. Maybe it's your judgment, how much judgment you have on other people. Whatever it is that you're like, ugh, that, I don't want to bring that. That does not belong in my place of refuge. If we could actually try and see that that part has something to teach us, that that part is important, and that that part is trying to help us. It's a vital piece of this refuge itself. And we have to listen, and we have to welcome, and we have to be curious, and we have to talk to it and welcome it as part of our family inside. That's the invitation for today. So I want to invite you to find yourself a comfortable position. You can close your eyes or you can keep them just softly focused in front of you. Softening your jaw, softening your shoulders, letting your shoulder blades slide down your back. Taking a few deep breaths to settle. You can choose one point of focus that's going to be your refuge point, your arc. Whatever is arising in your world right now, worry, angst, anger, terror, sleepiness, you can keep returning back to just the rise and fall of your breath, or the feeling of your feet against the ground, or even the sounds in the room. As your anchor, as your arc to take you through the waves. Shelter you from the storm. Welcoming all parts of you, the parts you like and the parts you don't. letting all parts of you take up space in this moment, in your arc. Just here, just this. We'll practice in silence if you find yourself getting lost or falling asleep. As soon as you notice, it's just an opportunity to soften, to welcome again just this moment, just this breath. Your mind has run off somewhere. And just notice where it's going. You can notice if you're getting tossed around by the storms within and without. Just find your way back to this ark, this place of refuge. Just here. Just this moment. Saying yes, welcome to all that is unfolding. You can put a hand on your heart or your belly or both. And just close with an intention. Perhaps a desire to return back to this refuge, this ark that's always here for you. And perhaps a desire to welcome in even the scariest, biggest opponents in your own heart and mind. that we might learn from them, and you might see how they are trying to support you and help you. And you can thank yourself for practicing today. And when you're ready, if your eyes are closed, you can open them. And you can bring your attention back here together.
Thank you so much, Yael. Beautiful practice. We will now seal our practice as we do with Kaddish Yatom, Mourner's Kaddish. You'll see it on your screen in a moment. And if it's your custom to stand, you may do so, or of course stay seated. Unmute yourself and we'll read together in a great cacophony. Yit Gadal, Vit Kadash, Shemay Rabbah.
Vatibra Yushay
Makaya Kona, Vyoma Kona, Makaya, the Kobe Israel, Agala, Amen. Holy Homaya, Emperor Yishrapa, Rabbi, Savior to Darby, to Love, Kudisha, Ela, Kobe, Matava, Shirata, Katavana, Kamata, Damirabi, Amavi, Real, Amen.
Amen. Amen. Thanks again to Yael, and thank you to Natalie for the tech support. Thanks you all for being here. We'll be back tomorrow at 12:30. For those of you who are able and willing to stay on for another 15 minutes, Yael, I didn't even ask you. It's okay. You're good with another 15. Great. So if you'd like to stick with us and ask any questions to Yael about our practice today. It's helpful if you're writing, please write the question in the chat, and it's helpful to start with the word question just so it catches my eye. But if I could start us off, I'm curious for you to bring us in a little bit more about what the kind of inner dialogue is like when you're speaking to that giant. How do you keep it from being like overly discursive? You know, you start talking to the giant, but then it's like, oh, what about that other giant? And then, you know, thinking, and also like how you keep it, you know, from increasing anxiety to engage in that conversation. So curious what it's like for you.
Yeah, I learned this from my sister, who is a internal family therapist, internal family systems therapist. And in that, like in a lot of therapeutic systems, they talk a lot about working with the parts of ourselves, and especially the parts of ourselves that are causing trouble in our lives. And so what she taught me is basically a set of very clear questions. So first off, when you're wanting to engage Og, or whatever your giant / demon, whatever that is for you, we have to do it from a place where we are not the giant, like we're not inside of it. We're not just living from inside of that part. So step one is to find your stability, which is really this lesson of the Parsha, like where is the ark, the thing that you can hold on to when everything is topsy-turvy. So step one is to first start there before you engage with the giant. Step two, the question that you ask is you start with just genuine curiosity. And it's an internal questioning, but you're going to ask that part of yourself, what are you afraid of? What are you afraid of for me? Because often the anger or the anxiety, like, will tell you right away, if you don't listen to me, you're going to be in trouble. You're going to get hurt. Your kids are going to get hurt. You know, this world is going to come to an end. It knows very clearly what it's afraid of. And so we first want to just let that come out. What are you afraid will happen to me or those that I love? Let's hear that. Let's hear it. Okay. Then you ask the question, what do you want for me? Always assuming that it wants something good for you. That, like, he's there on the boat because he actually wants something good for you. And so then he'll be like, well, I want you to be at ease. I want you to be safe. I want you to be well, whatever it is that the answer is. And then you can say, like, you can really be like, is there any more? Is there any more? And then you can express gratitude to that part. Like, even if his methods are horrible and causing you so much pain and grief, like, you can really genuinely be thankful for what they're trying to do from you and what they're trying to protect you from. And then when you've done some of that work, you can start to say, what would it take for you to relax this battle or this fight or this unrelenting worst case scenarios that you're giving me? What would it take to relax? How could I help you to relax? And then this is not a very quick process. This is like an ongoing process, but that's the nature. And hopefully your giant will tell you, well, if I feel like you've got this, if I feel like you're actually steering the ship, or you can really trust that God is steering the ship, then maybe I can relax a little bit. And then you gradually become like just kind of friends with the giant rather than locked in this. Oh, you're muted, Jordan.
That too is helpful. For telling me that. Thank you. That was really helpful. I'm wondering, and this is kind of riffing on a question that came in here from Moshe, about the as he puts it here, striking similarities between the Midrash you introduced and the Buddhist teaching and the Rumi poem, The Guest House, right? In which, one doesn't know what guest is going to arrive, but the orientation of the guest house is like the doors are open to receive whoever comes in. And just curious, like, what wisdom informs how you hold this this process?
Yeah, I think that's a beautiful and bring in analogy, that poem. I think that's right. I think it's just part of our practice. Like, we know something about this, those of us that have been meditating, we know something about how the more we fight things, anything, the more that it rises up to fight us. And then we have a lot of what we see in the world today, like just escalating battles. And so this orientation towards welcoming, it assumes a few things. Like, it assumes that you can find that place of safety. Somebody else wrote, like, what are the limits of inviting our demons? And
Yeah.
I think there's wisdom in thinking, like, wait a minute, I'm not in a place where I can do this. And that's sometimes wise. You need to find that place of stability if you're going to engage in this practice, but it is not beyond us. We can do that. That is the process of healing, of finding the place of safety, of bigness, of finding the kind of grown-up selves that can hold the painful child selves that are like wanting to be welcomed. So I love it.
Yeah, and just to follow up, to kind of continue with that, another question that came in from Laura What would you suggest I do if I invite in my most frightening demons and I cannot find a place of safety or internal arc? How do I find the safety or arc?
Yeah, I would say maybe not the best moment, not the time to invite them in. You have to find the arc first, because otherwise we become flooded. Then we have no arc. You're in the flood. And that's not helpful for anybody. That's not helpful for growth, actually, psychologically. That's not where we grow from.
Yeah.
So step one must be to find that place of safety, but it I keep wanting to just emphasize that it is possible, even if it's for a few moments, of feeling like literally with your body. Like sometimes when I'm feeling very dysregulated, I've shared this before, I lay down on the floor, like literally feeling the chair underneath you, feeling stability underneath you, taking breaths or hearing nature or like smelling the air, whatever it does to help you to stabilize. Or with a therapist, with somebody, a professional that can help you to find that place of safety.
Hmm.
Then we do the inviting only from that place of safety.
Hmm. Uh, it strikes me, I'm curious what you think. There are important differences between the metaphor of the guest house and the ark, and I think it speaks to what you just said. Um, right? Like a guest house, part of that metaphor is that you don't know who's going to show up, and you have a guest house that has a structure and it's equipped to welcome people. It's prepared for it. It's not just like you're wandering around, you're a mobile guest house, just greeting people and bringing them in without any kind of stability. I hadn't thought about that element of that kind of metaphor before.
Yeah.
Um, because, to your point, it strikes me that like having that stable arc, that safe arc, is the necessary prerequisite for being able to, welcome in that giant.
Yeah. And
Uh,
it's funny, a stable arc. It's like very not that stable, but it's stable enough. Like
yeah,
it's still getting thrown around, but it's enough. Like
yeah,
just something that's you feel can shield you in some way, some stillness in the storm.
yeah. Um, I'm picking up on a comment here from Anna, that just sharing how her og, her giant, has changed over time, um, and that the sort of way in which that og as a teacher has shifted. A really beautiful comment, and just curious, like any reflections on. To me, I feel like part of what um, um, part of what I experience is like, when is it time to let go of that old giant? And maybe that giant is like, I'm ready to move on from that
Mm,
old friend. So I'm curious, like, how do we know when to let go of it? When do we welcome it in? And sort of, which is again different than the guest house. Like we're sort of inviting, like, oh, inviting that person in, or that giant in.
yeah.
How do we navigate that?
Yeah. Well, I think it works better in the guest house analogy, but there are some times where we if this being human is a guest house, which is the direct line, there are some times where we don't let the guests go, even when they are ready to go. Like
Yeah.
we're holding on to their ankles and we're like pulling at their clothes and we're like, no, no, I need you. Like, who am I without you? Even destructive guests who
Mm.
want to and are ready to go. It's so destabilizing to sometimes not have them anymore. We don't know who we are without them anymore. And so we hold on. And so I think part of the discernment and part of the practice, the idea of the guest house is that we're not kind of, mm, we're not like forcing anybody to stay longer than they're staying, and we're also not shoving anybody out who's coming in. Like these are all the kind of things that are moving through us and our job is to keep like relaxing of the pushing and the pulling and the pushing and the pulling just over and over again to what needs to come through.
That's great. Maybe we'll just pause there. We're at time. Yael, any last thoughts and also I apologize, everybody. I said we'll see you tomorrow. I should have said Monday. I totally misspoke. Tomorrow is Shabbat. Thanks for listening so carefully to what we say. I don't feel like I'm with my children. Yael, any last thoughts as we move towards Shabbat to bring this practice with us?
Yeah, and I'm just scrolling through such beautiful questions and comments that you all shared. Thank you for that. And I think I just want to offer this almost like a koan or like a question that we can just hold as we move into Shabbat, which is, what am I resisting in this ark, this place of refuge, and what might I feel ready to welcome? Even if it's for a moment, even if it's for just a day, what is it time that I welcomed or time that I stopped resisting, and see where that takes you.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. Shabbat Shalom, everybody. We'll see you next week, and have a peaceful, healing